The sun rises, the sun sets, and people always going to get into credit card debt. I know what you're here for. Let's go ahead and get started.
I'm actually really glad that you said this because it kind of gives me a chance to explain how we got into this much debt. Before we had kids, I was working full time, making $45,000 a year on salary, and my husband was making about $75,000.
Not bad.
Once we had our first kid and I quit, I was about 6 months postpartum, and that was just a third of our income gone. But we were ignorant and we did not want to start spending like we had just lost a third of our income. So we put a lot of that on credit cards, and we actually ended up getting pulling out HELOC, which is equity from our home. But you have to pay that back because it's a line of credit. So that was about $80,000
Does she think anybody thinks you don't have to pay that? I can just take out equity out of my house. I don't have to pay that back. Like, what?
that we pulled out, and then we spent on various things. We did pay off some debt, but the thing with credit cards and having those is you just keep spending on them. So yeah, that's a big part of our debt. Over the past 2 years, once we kind of hit our limit and maxed out our credit cards, got ourselves this deep in the hole, we realized we needed to change our spending habits. So that's the biggest thing that's changed, is just the way that we spend now versus the way we were spending to get into this much debt. Yeah, that's the biggest thing that's changed. So my
The biggest thing that's changed with our spending is we literally couldn't take out debt anymore, so we couldn't spend beyond our means. We literally, the bank told us no. That's what changed. Not our behaviors. We just physically couldn't do it anymore. And then we came to the conclusion like, hey, we can't do this anymore. So we changed as people. Dude, like that's not some big revelation. You just couldn't do the thing anymore. Like I'm telling you, it is a mindset. These people just cannot. A certain group of people cannot handle debt. They just don't understand it. You could teach them all the classes in the world, and they just can't manage it. Like,
so my husband
the bank loves these people, by the way. These people. This is how banks make money. This is how credit cards make money. It's because these people right here. Don't be a victim. Do not be the person who's funding Visa, dude. Visa makes enough money as is.
salary does cover our minimum expenses now, after budgeting and kind of figuring out what our means of living looks like. So
I had an excessive shopping problem with clothes since I was in high school. Back then, the clothes I was buying were pretty cheap. It was pretty much just thrift stores, and my family didn't really have the means to shop at places like Aritzia or Lululemon growing up. But despite that, I would still come home every weekend with a massive thrift haul. Once I moved away to university and got more independence, the problem got a lot worse. I had a part time job and was getting money from student loans, but was still spending way more than I could afford. I still remember the first purchase I ever made that felt like I had reached a new level in my shopping habits. And it might not sound that crazy to some people, but for me at the time, it was. It was a pair of Adidas Stan Smith shoes. I think they probably retailed for $120 at the time. But for me, that was the most I'd ever spent on a pair of shoes growing up. This was also the time that I got my first credit card, and throughout university, the balance on that card slowly started to climb. I also studied abroad in Southeast Asia in my third year of university, and I really didn't have the tools to learn how to save for that. So I ended up putting a ton of travel expenses on credit card.
How would she even like? What tools would she need to save if she said she's accumulating credit card debt even prior to this third year? So like, where would she get extra money from for this trip abroad? Like she was already living behind her means, and then she was like, "Oh, I was gonna do a year abroad," but see, I didn't have the tools to save for it. It's like well, you didn't even have the tools to save for your life before you were taking trips. So what? Like, why would you? What? Like,
Card as well.
it's just a real bad excuse to be like, oh yeah, and overseas put me behind because I just wasn't educated enough. It's like, no, dude.
And that really dug that hole even deeper. This was also the time that YouTube and Instagram really started to blow up, and I think the influencer culture that was really growing at the time definitely influenced the increase in my shopping. Once I graduated and got a big girl job, I thought that my new salary would be enough to pay down my debt and still allow me to shop at the level that I was shopping. But in reality, I just shopped more and more, and any dent that I did put on that credit card balance just was reversed with a few online orders.
This is what I've said. And if you watch any Caleb Hammer, it's the same thing. You can make all the money in the world. And if you live beyond your means, you'll just continue to live beyond your means. You'll just now live even farther beyond your means because the higher your income is, the more credit they'll let you take out. And you can just get into such a deep hole. It's insane, guys. Do not think you can earn your way out of your debts. If you are accustomed to living beyond your means, you're just going to keep doing it. You can make more and more money and you'll just keep going into debt. And you'll actually find yourself in even more debt because, like I said, the creditors will give you even more if they know your income's so high.
At my very worst, I was spending about $1,700 a month on clothes and basically shopping through my
$1,700 a month is more than my rent and my car payment right now in just clothes every month.
six-figure salary that I had reached by the age of 28. There was a constant stream of packages. I was hiding my purchases from my boyfriend at the time, now fiance. I was running out of storage space and just constantly dealing with this shame and guilt around shopping. I was trying to budget throughout this time, but tracking my spending just increased the shame and not my discipline.
Imagine spending too much money, being ashamed of it. Literally, you're buying things you don't even have like storage for them. It's like, what about all these other clothes? And you're like, no, I can't. I just like buying them. Like, this is maybe a version of hoarding, but like, you'll be surprised how common this is. I don't know how many people I know who just buy stuff and it's always just junk a month later. There's someone I know whose husband does this. He gets like obsessed with something, buys probably $2,500 to $3,500 worth of goods to do this like new hobby he has. And then he just gets a new hobby every 2 months. It's insane. She's like going crazy. Because luckily, I've snuck into her house. Saving in the S&P is super cool. And she put about $20,000, which isn't much, but you know, she's seen it grow a lot. And she's like, oh, she was talking to her husband, look at how much, you know, we can retire early, we can stop working. But this poor guy's hobbies just got her. Bro, this man spent $2,500 on a pizza oven setup for the outside just to make pizzas. I'm like, dude, just go to CC's for like 3 years. Like, you don't need to be making pizzas at home if this setup's going to cost you $2,500. Like, what the hell?
The worst part was that I wasn't actually achieving the thing that I was trying to get through excessive shopping. I craved the perfect wardrobe and confidence in my personal style, but the more new things I brought into my wardrobe, the more confused I was about that, and the more driven I was to purchase more to satisfy that insecurity.
Man, see, she needs to go to a psychiatrist. This doesn't even make sense. So she was like, I was buying things to complete my wardrobe, but the things that I bought, once I bought them, made my wardrobe more confusing. It's like, so did you even have any plan to like, this is what my goal is in buying clothes? Like, I need this for this. She just wanted to go out and then just essentially window shop and then just buy everything impulsively. Like, this is just an impulse problem for sure. It's gotta be, but $1,700 a month on clothes, guys, on clothes.
Getting engaged.
That's like literally $19,000 a year. No, I lied. That is $20,000 a year in clothes. Imagine spending $20,000 a year in clothes.
Last summer really put things in perspective and made me realize that if I was going to continue shopping at the rate that I was, it was going to put the bigger life goals that I didn't realize were coming up so fast in jeopardy. Suddenly, things like buying a home and having a family were on the horizon, and I knew if I didn't cut back on my spending, not only would it affect me, but it would also affect my partner. So I did a 3-month no-buy in the spring that, to my own amazement, radically changed my relationship to shopping and allowed me to aggressively put money towards my debt. I did make the last payment on all my credit card debt in October,
Oh, nice.
and it's a bit hard to say how much I paid off in full because that number really fluctuated a lot throughout my 20s. I would pay a few thousand off and then rack it up again, pay a few thousand off, rack it up again. But I would guess a modest estimate would be upwards of $50,000. All that being said, I just want you to know that I'm not special. For so many years, I thought that credit card debt and excessive shopping would be something that I would deal with forever. And if I can overcome it, so can you. I'm not smarter than you. I'm not more capable than you. You have all the power in you to be able to pay off debt and take control of your finances. All you really need is a belief that you can.
Now, the only thing I do worry about her is she said she kind of changed her whole lifestyle, right? She did this 3-month no-day shop, and it changed her relationship with shopping. I would be very worried, and I would encourage her probably to go to a therapist, because she said she wants to start a family, which means have kids before she has kids. Because I know normal people who, once they have kids, they buy so much junk for these kids. They buy them new shoes like every couple of weeks. They buy so much baby gear that's like realistically not needed, because, well, I don't want to mess this up. I don't want to mess this up. I don't want to mess this up, in the anxiety. And she obviously thinks she needs to buy her way out of stuff, right? She wasn't comfortable with her wardrobe. So she was like, if I just buy more gear, buy more gear, buy more gear. We call those gear heads in any sort of like hobby, where people just get into a hobby and they kind of suck at it, and they feel like if they just have fancier and fancier gear, they can like buy the skill difference, right? If they just have fancier gear, that's what's making the difference. And you're like, no, dude, it's all skill. Like, there's YouTube people who do that, or like, if I just had a fancier camera, just a fancier microphone, just like a gimbal, you know, all the fancier lighting, like my videos would do better. It's like, yeah, I mean, it'll help you a little bit, but if the content isn't there, you're screwed. I don't know. I'm worried about her, man. If she has a kid, dude, that like she might get a little nutty with the baby gear.
Okay, how do I deal with people in real life knowing about this? This is the fact that I have $16,000 worth of credit card debt plus a $39,000 car loan. How I deal with this is realizing that majority of people around me are in debt and just not talking about it. Majority of people around you are in debt and just not talking about it. Nobody wants to talk about debt. Nobody wants to be upfront and honest about their life circumstances. So many people are living a lie on Instagram and on TikTok and Facebook, and going on vacations that they can't afford, and getting cars that they can't afford, and putting things on credit cards and not being able to pay them off. So that is how I deal with it, honestly, is because majority of people around me are in the same situation. I've had so many people reach out to me after being honest and open about this journey, saying that they're in the same situation, and
it's okay. I'm okay going into debt because everybody else around me is going into debt. So that's how I deal with it. I go, everybody else is shooting themselves in the foot and not saving up for retirement. And, if they're going to go to the poorhouse, I might as well go to the poorhouse, right? I mean, if everybody is making stupid decisions for luxury goods, so that way they don't have a retirement for later and they have to end up in some Medicare, Medicaid, old folks home. I mean, why should I feel bad going there? Why should I save for my future when everybody around me is not, It's like keeping up with the Joneses. Instead, it's like we're learning from the stupid Joneses. Why are we doing this? This is the worst way to justify going into debt ever. Like, well, he's in $30,000 worth of credit card debt, so it's fine that I'm $25,000 in debt. It's like, no, none of this is okay. Do not use someone. Everybody's going to be in a worse situation. You could justify almost anything, right? You could ram your car into a kid and break his leg and be like, well, John down the street rammed into a kid and killed him, so I'm actually doing pretty good. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to keep texting on my phone while I'm driving. These are horrible arguments. You should not be going into consumer debt unless, I don't know, you lose your job and you have to do it to absolutely survive. But a lot of times it's always for luxuries. I mean, look at the back of her house. It's a pretty nice house. We're not on the verge of homelessness, it seems like.
This girl's asking, where does everyone get their money from? Definitely watch this video and read the comments.
Some people get it from credit card debt. Some people get it from inherited money if they're lucky enough. And some people get it from working really hard and having multiple streams of income, but this is probably the most rare out of what I just expressed. Some people get it from living from paycheck to paycheck and making very poor financial choices despite having a decent income. Little story time. There was this girl who was trying to be an influencer who went to school with me in New York City. Gorgeous girl, absolutely stunning, but she spent every waking minute making content on Instagram. She bought about 30,000 followers, tried to pass herself off as an influencer, even though most people knew that her followers were fake. And sometimes she would get a free vacation or a hotel stay because she'd be like, oh, look, I'm an influencer, blah, blah, blah. And she'd get little sponsorships here and there. But none of those sponsorships would feasibly afford her lifestyle. Ubering everywhere instead of walking, she's probably spent $250 a week on Ubers around New York City, constantly purchasing from Aritzia, Lululemon, but she probably spent about $2,000 a month on clothes. Every semester she would get a new designer bag, big material girl thing. And I was always scratching my head. I'm like, how does she afford that? Then she got married to a guy who makes $48,000 a year, and she had the brilliant idea to trade in her husband's Ram truck for a Porsche, even though their combined income could not possibly be more than $80,000 a year. So
I am curious how, if they're doing that, how they're getting approved for these loans. But hey, on the plus side, she's going into a lot of debt. But hey, if he's got that Porsche, they don't have to Uber anywhere. You know, she's thinking smart. This girl's trying to put her down, but she's thinking ahead.
So yet again, another example of them living way beyond their means. Oh, I forgot the best part. So they got engaged 3 times. One time he proposed to her when she was, I think, a sophomore in college with a pretty nice ring. All right. A year later, she had another ring that was bigger. And I asked her, I'm like, hey, like, your ring's bigger. Like, did you keep the old one? She's like, well, it has so much sentimental value, I couldn't sell it. Okay, so 2 diamond rings. Okay. And then later, she was like, she went to the Caribbean or something like that. And then on her Instagram story, she shows this massive ring. I'm like, you're 21. How do you afford that? And her fiance was still in college, making $900 a month. And it was from a designer jeweler in New York City. So that ring was probably at least $20,000. So her fiance had to go through, or husband had to go through about at least $30,000 worth of rings to get this girl to marry him. Yet again, another example of just amazing financial choices. The worst part is she always tried to play it off like she was buying everything herself and like she wasn't in debt. Turns out all 3 of the rings were being financed. The Porsche is being financed, and she bought everything on a credit card. Her parents did used to spoil her once upon a time, I think at the beginning of college, but then they lost a lot of money and had to move to another state. So she couldn't really fall back on them anymore to like help her finance stuff. And now they live in another country. She's not working. Her husband makes about $52,000 a year. I can look it up. And car payments up to their eyeballs. So everything is not as it seems.
I mean, obviously, social media is full of people like trying to keep up with the Joneses, keep up appearances. I would say it's kind of sad, but I mean, a lot of people like go on vacations or buy things just so they can post it to social media to make things look better for themselves. I don't know if I've already told this story. I might have told it on one of my live streams that I do after the videos, but I knew someone who was throwing a birthday party for their 2-year-old. Okay? It's a 2-year-old. Throwing a birthday party for their 2-year-old. And she was explaining how expensive it's going to be because they need to get all these inflatable castles. They need to get, I guess, post-birthday party gift favors. So I guess when kids come to the birthday, you give them gifts so like every kid goes home with a gift. I mean, this is a 2-year-old, but whatever. I mean, that's kind of cool. That's kind of nice if you can afford it. And then, I don't know, some person to come in and dress up as a children's show character. And she was like, oh my gosh, it's going to cost me so much. Oh, and she was going to get catering. And I was like, hey, it's your 2-year-old's birthday party. Like, just, I'm sure if you get her any gifts or just do anything outside of the normal, it's a 2-year-old. She's going to have a good time. And she was like, no, well, you don't understand. Like, all my friends did this for their 2-year-olds and it's going to make me look bad. And I was like, oh, there it is. There it is. Is this really your 2-year-old's birthday party? Or is this really a party to show that you're doing just as well as all of your friends? It's kind of sad because she doesn't have the money for it. She actually, sorry, I hit my camera. She actually had to take money from her parents to help pay for her 2-year-old's birthday party. Like, obviously there's no retirement savings there. And then like this kid, when this kid's 15 going to college or wants to buy a first car, you know, important purchases that unfortunately in the US you have to make. Her mom's going to be like, well, you know, we went to Disney when you were 1. And do you remember that fancy party I threw for you when you were 2? No, nobody's going to remember that. Nobody's going to care. Even a year from now, no one's going to care. Not even a year from now. 2 months from that birthday party, no one's going to care about that birthday party. But people feel this need to keep up with the Joneses. I mean, she's telling a great story about someone in school who she knew. 3 rings. If there was nobody, if it was just her and her husband on Earth, do you think those rings would matter at all? They wouldn't matter at all. If he just got her anything of like sentimental value, right? That first ring would have been enough. But for whatever reason, when people see all these social media posts, they feel like, hey, I need to get something better. I got to match. I got to keep up because or else like, they feel like they have to keep up because or else they're not doing as well as everybody else and they feel social pressure to do it. Some people just need to delete social media. Social media is great. I mean, you guys know I love watching these TikToks, but like I've never seen a rich person and been like, I need to have that. Like if you can't find happiness in your own life as is and you don't like, what are you doing? Maybe that's why there's such a rise in depression. I I don't understand all these people who feel like they need to keep up with the Joneses. Not everybody can be a millionaire. And guess what? If everybody was a millionaire, you would feel normal. It wouldn't actually feel good anymore. Like, you guys cannot buy your way into happiness. You can't do it. You can't buy your way into happiness, let alone go into debt to buy your way into happiness. Good Lord.
Do you know what? We have got to stop keeping up appearances, because that is what has got me into £15,000 worth of debt. Like, I used to be the friend that people said, oh, Megan's got loads of money, Megan goes on holiday all the time, Megan does this, Megan does that. And even when I told people, trust me, I do not have the money, they just like wouldn't believe me. And it's almost like now I've come out on TikTok, everyone is in shock, which is just baffling to me, because I always told people I never had the money. Like, I went into work yesterday and I had colleagues say to me, I didn't realise how much debt you were in, I didn't realise the situation you were in. But actually, I've never really hidden it to people. I've always said, like, work's quiet when it's quiet. I've always said, oh, I don't have the money to do this. And I've always said about loans and credit cards. So I don't know why people thought I was always rich this whole time. But clearly, people don't realise actually how much debt people get in just doing things that seem like normal things, like going on holiday and going out with friends and going for weekends away with people.
Yeah, I mean, this makes total sense. There's plenty of rich people like, oh, I don't really have the money for that. And they're pretty much, it's a nice way of saying like they don't want to spend money on doing that thing. People assumed you were rich because you were living a lifestyle way beyond your income. And the common person would just look at you and go, oh, well, obviously she has the money. Who would go into debt on holidays? Who would go into debt for all this fun stuff and ruin their financial future if you don't have the money to do that? That's why people assumed it. You can tell people all you want, but your friends probably assume you're not a moron and that you wouldn't go into debt just going away on holiday with friends. I understand that's becoming more and more of a common thing, but historically that was not what you did. If you didn't have money to go on a holiday, you just didn't go on it. Because obviously if you have to finance a holiday, it's costing you like 20% more, 10% more based on your interest rate, probably closer to the 20%. And most people think that's dumb. Prices of everything are already so high. People are going into debt just trying to live their lives. They're like, why would you go into even more debt and have to finance it if you can't afford it? That's why people assumed you were just lying to them and just like it was a nice way of like, oh, I can't make it then, or oh, I have other plans. A lot of people don't have other plans. They just don't want to go to your event, right? So when you said, hey, I don't have the money to do this, they probably assumed you just didn't want to do it. Not that you were financing your entire lifestyle. Like, this is common sense. But yeah, that's what people think. I don't know if someone in your comments is going to tell you that, but that's why. Because nobody would be this stupid.
And actually, things cost a lot of money, and we need to stop keeping up appearances, trying to fit in with everyone else around us who can afford to do these things when we can't do it. So this is the year, in 2025, we all need to talk about our finances. We need to talk about our debt. We need to talk about the money that is coming in and coming out. And when we can't afford to do something, we need to say no.
But she is not even doing that. Like, literally, you just said you got into debt doing all of these things. Just say no. Like, just don't do it. People just need to be happy with their life. Just because you have a friend who's richer than you, who's doing a ton of fancy things, doesn't mean you need to do it. I mean, guys, you would think it's rocket science, but these are all adults. All adults, every single one of them. And they can't say no to their friends, or they can't be like, oh, I can't go to that dinner, that restaurant's too expensive. You don't even have to say that. If you're embarrassed at your finances, just be like, oh, I can't make it that night. Sorry, guys. I got some other plans. It's so simple. There's a million ways of doing it. And if your friends won't hang out with you because you can't afford to do the stuff they do sometimes, so you can't make it, like, those are not good friends. Just, you need to find a separate group of people to hang out with.